It all began in silence. In the cold emptiness of space, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. For astronomers, it was just another night of observation, one more of the thousands of dawns spent in front of screens, monitoring almost invisible signals coming from the stars. Until something appeared. Something that should not have been there. The first record appeared at an observation center in Hawaii. An unusual point of light slowly crossed the field of view of a radio telescope. At first glance, it looked like just another interstellar asteroid, but soon inconsistencies arose. Asteroids, comets, and space fragments follow chaotic trajectories, influenced by the gravity of nearby bodies. This one, however, moved with frightening precision. Every calculation showed the same conclusion. It maintained constant speed, fixed direction, as if it had a clear destination. Messages began to circulate among international teams. From Europe, South America, Asia. Within a few hours, dozens of observatories confirmed. It was not a mistake, nor an illusion. Something colossal was crossing space. While the news spread among scientists, many remained silent. They feared announcing prematurely, they feared panic. But the strangeness grew with each new measurement. There was no irregular rotation, no fragments around it. It was as if the object was perfect. And the closer it got, the clearer the uncomfortable feeling became. That did not look like a rock. It looked built. As the object advanced through space, the calculations began to unsettle the scientists. Its speed did not decrease, nor did it increase as would be expected by Earth's gravity. It was constant, controlled. What caught the most attention was the detail no one could ignore. The object did not behave like a natural body. There was no irregular rotation, no orbital debris around it. It moved straight, as if it had a programmed destination. When the first reports reached governments, the atmosphere was one of absolute tension. Militaries in different countries were silently activated, without the population knowing. Satellites were redirected, fighters put on alert, and defense protocols discussed in emergency meetings. But everyone knew nothing could be done. The object was far too gigantic, and it was coming directly to Earth's geostationary orbit. At that moment, a dilemma arose among specialists: disclose the information and risk global panic, or wait longer and study the phenomenon in secret. But the choice would not be theirs alone. Because, while governments tried to control the news, images began to appear on the internet. Residents in rural areas, amateur astronomers, and curious people with home telescopes pointed their lenses at the sky. The constant glow, immobile, unlike any star or common satellite, was recorded in short videos. These videos quickly spread on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter. Within hours, millions of people had already seen it. The secret had fallen apart. The whole world knew that something impossible was above their heads. When the first high-definition records began circulating among observation centers, the truth was no longer just a suspicion. The object was not a simple celestial body. Its shape was far too clear, its lines far too precise. The images showed a colossal structure, kilometers long. From afar, it resembled a floating monolith, wrapped in metallic reflections that varied in intensity as sunlight hit its surface. But it was not only metal. There was something organic in its texture. It was as if the ship breathed, as if it were alive. The scientists were shocked. Some tried to compare it to human technologies, but soon gave up. Nothing on Earth came close to what they were seeing. And as military drones approached, even more details were revealed. Hexagonal structures moving as if they were cells, a metallic skin pulsing at rhythmic intervals, like the beating of a heart. It was at that moment that the name 3I Atlas spread. The third interstellar discovery in human history, but the first to carry the indisputable mark of a superior intelligence. The entire world stopped. There was no denying what orbited above our heads was not just a ship. It was a message, a presence, and possibly a warning. In the first hours after confirming that the object was artificial, Earth was plunged into secrecy. Emergency meetings were convened in the major world powers. Heads of state, military, and scientists sat at the same table faced with reports that seemed taken from science fiction. The order was clear: keep the population calm at any cost. But behind closed doors, the tension was uncontrollable. Military bases were placed on high alert. Satellites repositioned. Fighters and bombers prepared, even knowing that no human arsenal would be able to face something of that scale. In different command rooms, heated debates arose. Should they try immediate contact? Should they attack preventively? Or simply wait? Some generals argued that it was an imminent threat. Others, that it was the opportunity for an evolutionary leap for humanity. But everyone knew, for the first time in history, we were facing something that went beyond any frontier of power. The silence of the ship was deafening, and that silence dictated every human decision. While governments tried to hide information, the internet did the opposite. The first amateur images spread worldwide in a matter of hours. A luminous point, motionless in the sky, brighter than any star. On TikTok, young people posted videos with theories of alien invasion. On YouTube, live broadcasts showed home telescopes capturing the strange presence. On Twitter, thousands of real-time posts used the same hashtag #Atlas. Religious groups saw signs of prophecies. Conspiracy theorists claimed the ship had been in secret contact with governments for decades. Independent scientists tried to give rational explanations but failed. The world oscillated between fear and fascination. Families locked doors as if preparing for the end. Others gathered in the streets to look at the sky, as if watching a cosmic spectacle. There was no denying anymore. The information had escaped control. And suddenly, billions of people knew that humanity was no longer alone. At 3:47 a.m., something unexpected happened. For the first time, the 3-eye atlas emitted clear and repetitive signals. They were not words. They were not common sounds. They were pulses of light. Satellites and telescopes around the world recorded the sequence. Prime numbers, the Fibonacci sequence, perfect fractal patterns. There was no denying it. That was language. A universal language. Mathematics. The pulses repeated at precise intervals, as if it were a greeting. Not an attempt to intimidate, but to communicate. On Earth, the reaction was immediate. Scientists vibrated in ecstasy. Religious people claimed it was the handwriting of God. Military, on the other hand, wondered if it was a test, a way of assessing our capacity for understanding. Meanwhile, the transmissions were also picked up by amateur radios. Ordinary people could hear the echoes of the signals in their improvised antennas. And that made the experience even more disturbing. The whole of humanity was listening, as if it were a message intended not for governments, but for all of us. It was the first contact, and it could not be ignored. When the pulses of the 3-eye atlas echoed across the planet, humanity plunged into a wave of contradictory emotions. In some cities, temples and churches were filled with believers. Religious people saw in the signals divine proof, the return of angels, or the fulfillment of ancient prophecies. Amid tears and chants, many believed that this was the omen of a new era of redemption. But in other places, panic took over. Entire families ran to supermarkets, filling carts with water and supplies. Underground shelters were hastily opened, as if the world was about to go to war. For some, the 3-eye atlas was not a message, it was a threat. Hope and fear clashed at the same instant. While groups of scientists, activists, and dreamers celebrated the possibility of peaceful contact, millions of people saw only the risk of an invasion. Governments remained silent, but public opinion was already divided. Some begged for dialogue. Others demanded an immediate military reaction. And, for the first time in history, it was not just a scientific or political issue. It was existential. The question was not whether we were alone, but whether we were ready. When military drones finally approached the 3I Atlas, they revealed something even more disturbing. The hull of the ship was not solid, as a metallic construction should be. At each interval, small waves traveled across its surface, as if millions of metallic cells were reorganizing in real time. From a distance, it resembled a living skin, an organism breathing in the vacuum of space. The images transmitted in real time shocked the monitoring teams. There were no rivets, no plates, no fixed structures. Everything seemed to move in fluid patterns, like a school of fish or the rhythmic beating of a heart. Scientists were divided. Was it a ship built by alien machines? Or were we facing a biotechnological being, a hybrid of life and engineering? Some reports even suggested that the ship itself was a living organism, a colossal being, traveling through the cosmos, now stationary in Earth's orbit. And as the drones approached, one more detail left everyone in silence. The surface reacted to their presence. Waves of energy rippled across the hull, as if the 3I Atlas was watching back. Then, something happened that no one expected. Animals around the world began to stir. Dogs barked nonstop, birds flew in disordered flocks, and even cattle seemed restless. A few minutes later, millions of people heard it. It was not a voice, nor a song. It was a deep, low sound, like the beating of a heart, but not human. It came from the sky, from all directions. A constant, rhythmic pulse that seemed to penetrate the very earth and echo inside people's bodies. Some covered their ears in despair. Others cried, claiming to feel an inexplicable connection. Scientists recorded the sound waves at different frequencies but could not decipher their origin. The entire world stopped to listen. It was as if the 3I Atlas itself had begun to speak to us. Not in words, but in vibrations that resonated in the soul. The next morning, the world was no longer the same. Governments collapsed under popular pressure. Religions proclaimed the fulfillment of their prophecies. And scientists admitted, we were facing something that defied all human understanding. The 3I Atlas remained motionless, colossal, watching the planet like an enigmatic guardian. Its very presence was enough to alter the global order. The world economy faltered, stock markets plunged, while social movements emerged demanding immediate contact. Some saw salvation, others, condemnation. But one truth was undeniable: humanity was no longer alone. The silence had ended, and from that moment on, every decision would define the future of Earth. The destiny of humanity had changed forever.